We're told that official history is, well, the final record, right? But what happens when you find out there are pages missing, and the government agency that wrote that history is the one hiding them? Well, we're about to dive into a multi-year fight to uncover a truth the CIA really tried to keep buried in its own archives.
I mean, that's a pretty big question. It really gets you thinking about that fuzzy line between what the public gets to see and what stays secret. The story we're exploring isn't just about old, dusty documents. No, this is a real battle for the complete, unvarnished history of one of America's most infamous government programs.
Okay, so for years, the CIA had this 4 CD-ROM set. This was supposed to be it, the definitive public archive on MKUltra. You know, their infamous mind control program. Case closed, right? A settled piece of history. But then, one researcher decided to look a little closer, and he realized something was very, very wrong. The collection, it turns out, wasn't complete.
And that researcher, his name is John Greenewald, the guy behind the Black Vault. So he gets his hands on this list, this thing that another researcher had painstakingly put together, showing all these document numbers that should have been on those CDs, but they just weren't there. And that one little discovery, it kicked off a years-long quest to figure out what these missing files were all about, and more importantly, why they were hidden.
So you'd think, okay, just ask for the files that are supposed to be public. Simple, right? Oh no, not even close. What followed was this incredible bureaucratic showdown. Basically, one guy trying to get one of the world's most powerful intelligence agencies to just admit they messed up.
And this whole thing was anything but quick. It all started back in 2016, and for months, which then stretched into years, the CIA just kept pushing back. They were basically telling Greenewald, nope, you're wrong. It took nearly 3 full years of this back and forth before he was forced to do something pretty drastic just to prove his point. And get this, the absurdity of the situation is just staggering. To prove to the CIA that their own archive was incomplete, Greenewald had to manually create an index of every single file on their CDs and then send it to them. The final package was a 97-page fax. A fax. All of that just to get them to acknowledge what should have been obvious.
So after all that monumental effort, the CIA finally caves. They admit it, but just when it seems like, okay, victory, the agency completely flips the script. You see, they initially promised the documents for free, since they were part of a collection he'd already paid for. But now, that deal was off the table.
All of a sudden, there's a price tag. The CIA comes back and says the missing documents total 4,358 pages, and if he wants them, he's going to have to pay up, which of course raises the big question. Why the sudden change of heart?
And here is the CIA's official reason. It's a real piece of work. They claim the documents weren't technically about MKUltra or mind control. No. They were about a supposedly different topic, behavioral modification. And because of that little word game, they argued, he had to pay a fee.
But the story gets even weirder. So Greenewald raises the money, sends him a check, and the CIA sends it back. They wrote a letter saying the page count was wrong. The 4,358 pages had suddenly shrunk to just 2,316. I mean, well over 1,000 pages just, poof, vanished from the record. No explanation at all.
So he pays the new, lower fee, and he finally gets the documents. And as he starts digging through them, he finds it. The smoking gun. The one thing that completely blows up the CIA's entire excuse for charging him in the first place.
You see, buried in the files he was told were not about MKUltra was one specific document. It was 821 pages long. And guess what it was about? It was entirely financial records for, you guessed it, MKUltra. I mean, this was the ultimate proof, the smoking gun that directly contradicted the CIA's whole argument.
So, after this insane battle, what was actually in these documents that he fought so hard for? Well, the contents are a wild mix, ranging from the truly bizarre to the deeply, deeply unsettling. It really paints a strange picture of what the agency was focused on.
Okay, first up, a surprisingly large chunk of these files shows this bizarre fascination with using animals for spy missions. We're talking about official documents with titles like Memorandum on Trained Cats, a full dossier on Lutra, the otter, and seriously deep research into electric fish. It's just a wild look into the mindset of Cold War spycraft.
And then, of course, there's the stuff that really lines up with the dark reputation of MKUltra. These documents get into research on the remote control of behavior using electrical brain stimulation, developing new techniques for drug interrogation, studies on incapacitating people, even research on how vulnerable we are to hypnosis. It's a pretty stark reminder of what this program was really all about.
Now, as fascinating and, frankly, as weird as these documents are, the real story here isn't just about trained auditors or hypnosis. It's about the whole process. It's about what that fight tells us about getting access to our own history.
This nearly 3-year struggle, it reveals a really crucial truth. The fight for declassified records is actually a fight for history itself. It shows that government transparency isn't just something that happens. It's something that requires people, citizens, to be persistent and keep watch. I mean, the bureaucratic walls, the constantly changing stories, the pages that just disappear, it all proves just how hard it can be to get the whole story.
And that, of course, leaves us with one last unavoidable question. I mean, think about it. If it took this much of a fight to get files that were supposed to be public all along, and if thousands of pages can just vanish in the middle of it all, what else is still missing? How much of our own history is still sitting in a file cabinet somewhere, just waiting?